it my turn to do the intro?
Yeah, yeah. Do the cold open, buddy. Hit him with the wow there.
I had been preparing this in my mind all day. I was gonna make a, and now I forgot what I wanted to say. A Jewish prince and a Roman tribune walk into a crucifix. Oh, hey, there's Jesus. That's this movie. Okay, I don't know. We're talking about Ben-Hur. Which year was it? 1954. I'm out of it.
Yeah,
Take it
welcome
away.
back to Striking the Weird. A
Oh, we have names. I forgot.
yeah. Uh a uh a YouTube channel where we talk about all the strange and unusual things we've encountered in our travels. And yeah, today we are talking about our usual monthly movie, where we just explore a movie in greater detail. As Lucas referred to, hello there, Lucas. We are talking about Ben-Hur today, a movie which was released in 1959, near the end of old classic Hollywood. It was directed by William Wyler, written by Carl Tunberg, and it stars Charlton Heston of Planet of the Apes fame, among many other movies, Jack Hawkins, and Haya Harit, among many others.
Yeah, it is. It is quite the epic indeed. Have you watched any of the other biblical epics around this time?
I know there's the Ten Commandments, which I haven't
Yeah,
seen, but
that movie rocks.
which other ones are you referring to?
I believe there's also the greatest story ever told. It might have come out a little bit later, but it's about as long as Max von Sydow as Christ, I think.
Hmm.
And then I guess there's not a religious epic, but a similar time period epic with Cleopatra a little bit
Right,
later.
right.
But uh, yeah, this movie, as I told you last time, I wanted to start out with a bombastic film for our year
Mhm.
two, bigger, bolder, and more mainstream than anything we've watched thus far. With a religious story of an epic of classic Hollywood, um, and I was amazed myself at how well it holds up, how amazing the sets and the like the period piece works so well. It feels like you're actually there in Judea, or in Rome when you're in Rome, or in the galleys, and the clothing fits really well. And I was also surprised that it didn't focus too much on the religious aspect. But when it did, it sure did.
Yeah, we'll talk more about this later, but it's very subtle. Like you
Yeah.
hear them talk about the Jewish people and
Hmm.
what their God means to them, but
Hmm.
it doesn't get too overt until
Right.
the very end, and it just
Right.
it does kind of affect how I view the movie a little bit, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah. Well, it does start with the birth of Christ, right? Uh,
Hmm.
and and the three wise men finding him through the star and giving the gifts. So it does start with it. It opens with the birth of Christ, Jesus Christ of Nazareth in Bethlehem in the manger, um, in a very low down kind of place, or I guess it's up the hill, but I mean a very simple place, and it bookends it with the crucifixion, which is what I was referring to earlier. Um,
Hmm.
but most of the movie, Jesus barely shows up. Here and there. He's mentioned a lot, but also just God and the Jewish people's faith is brought up much more often than Christ himself,
Hmm.
um, which I was more into that aspect. But I suppose we should get into the meat of the story, starting with Judah and Messala.
But I should say it begins with a massive overture. which is
Yes.
a big theme of the, not a theme, but like a big part of the movie is its music because it has a
Mm,
massive overture, and then later it has an intermission with great music, and it's like it prides itself on its music because that
yeah.
like overture takes like a good 3 to 5 minutes.
I think it was 6 minutes. I was like, when is this gonna end? Like, weren't people getting into the movie by now? Yeah. So you're right. It does start with the not the intermission, the overture, which I haven't seen in a long time. Like that kind of thing. I guess I haven't been watching old classic films, but then Jesus is born, and the set design for that and the way it's done is pretty impressive. Um, and yeah, it just looks sort of period accurate, and yeah, you can kind of feel like, okay, this is the birth of Christ. He's going to play a big part in the movie, right? Not really.
Yeah, I thought I was amazed by that. Like it's just
Yeah,
like it's focusing like on Jesus, but in ways where it's more like what people are reacting to about him.
yeah, that's right. It was definitely focused on their reaction to him. I personally did wish, and I can explain my feeling more about the end. I wish that it would have focused more on him. It makes sense that he's not in most of the movie, and I do like that it primarily focused on Judah because his story was fascinating, Judah Ben-Hur. But I do think at the end, basically, this should not have been a 3.5 hour movie. This should have been a 4.5 hour movie, which I will explain why later.
I'm actually different. I think that you could cut out a huge chunk of this movie, um,
Yeah,
and make it shorter and still make it as epic.
I totally agree. Yes.
That's going to come up near the end of the movie, but I'll let you continue.
Well, I agree. You either there are a lot of things that can be cut and you make it tighter and it would be even better, or you add another hour, hour and a half and make it make sense. Messala arrives in Judea.
Amazing voice.
Yeah.
Very smooth.
Yeah, he had a very nice voice. Messala is was he a tribune at the beginning of the story? He's a tribune at the end.
Yeah, something
He's
like
second in command
that.
of the Roman province of Judea, which has been conquered a while back. And Messala is looking to control the Holy Lands and bring order for the governor to prove himself so that he can get any post he wants in another province of the Roman Empire. Messala is from Judea, if I remember correctly, and he has a lifelong friend in Judah Ben-Hur, who is a Jewish prince. And immediately, these lifelong friends are pit against each other with totally differing values, and it is on. It is that tension. I think this plays into Charlton, how do you say, Charleston Heston's
Mhm.
strengths as an actor, of which he has few, I think, but like he's very good at being like the kind of person who is sort of morally opposed to his foil. Uh, like he has a way of like looking at them, and he's got a really commanding voice. Uh, and when he's uh, stating in any of his movies, but in this one in particular, when Judah is stating his interest and the Jewish people's interests, which you can fill in the details in a second, um, like that is the best part of his performance when he's like pit against Messala in these early stages. So maybe you can explain a little more now.
Yeah. Uh, you really like hinted at like a lot of what's going on there. But that opening scene, or not that opening scene, but that scene where Masala and Judah are reunited is really good because you see how close they are as friends, There seems to be something deeper there because it's a very
Mm.
intimate friendship, which you can have. You can have like two bros being bros, but it seems like there's something deeper there.
Historians call them friends. It's that
Yeah,
meme, literally.
yeah.
It was a lot more than that. I guess when Messala shows up, I forgot to mention because I wrote this down. Uh, there is this really amazing, like we saw the birth of Christ, but there's this like amazing framing of the Roman attitude toward Judea and their religion, which I don't believe is like this movie is not historically accurate in any way, but there's this really interesting thing where I think it's Sextus, one of the centurions or somebody,
Hmm.
says like the people of Judea have an irrational resentment of Rome when and things like that. And they're um, you know, they start maybe that's a little bit later, but they have an irrational resentment of Rome and they're upset, particularly for some religious reasons.
Hmm.
Um, and they're looking to, yeah, meet that out of them and try to punish them. But it's like you've conquered their people and are enforcing your own rules and bringing legions and legions to trample the rabble rousers, as they say.
You told me it was timely, and yes, I agree. Like there, you definitely see like Masala with this sort of power over Judah. Uh,
Hmm.
like they're friends, but like he has more power because he's occupying Judah's land.
Right,
It's similar to what's going on currently in the Middle East with
right,
Israel occupying Palestinian land.
right.
Um, and so it's kind of hard for Masala and Judah to be friends. Like something would have torn them apart eventually. It just happened to be Masala's request here that, hey, can you tell your people to be nicer to us?
Yeah, yeah, because like the Romans make a big point of like you can't beat an idea out of people. Like you can't just keep beating these people down and hoping that they'll give up because it's not, I don't know, it's not like material needs that is motivating them necessarily. It's like spiritual elements. It's an idea in their head, their religion. And so Masala's plan is to fight that idea with another idea. And that's why he like meets with Judah Ben-Hur to speak with him because Judah is well respected. He's an aristocrat, and he believes his people will listen to him. Um, but Judah doesn't want to betray his people and wants the Romans out and believes that is the best path forward for all parties.
Mhm.
Um, but that is counter to the interests of Rome, uh, and the interests of Rome are obviously counter to like the people who are there, the Jews and everyone else. So they have this just they're trying to maintain their friendship even though they're diametrically opposed and morally opposed to each other because Masala is ambitious. He's young and ambitious, and Judah is protective and caring and these kind of things of his people, and wants to maintain his own culture. And it's so good.
Mhm.
Love it.
It's very tragic too, because Masala is like, if you're not with me, you're against me. Like he's dealing in absolutes.
Yeah, he deals in
Um,
absolutes, and every single thing he says to Judah is a constant reminder that he's the one in control as well. Like
mhm.
whenever Judah makes a play in terms of like how he speaks to Masala to try and like um, bring his ambitions, temper his ambitions a little bit, it's immediately countered with something to remind him that the Romans are in charge now, and there's going to be more of them until uh, you know things keep going. And then there's that's just at Messala's place, but Messala is invited to Ben-Hur's home, and they have another extremely tense meeting, which is where he said, "You're either with me or against me."
Mhm.
And he's like, "Then if it's a choice between you or my people, I'm against you." Dramatic sting in the music.
Mhm.
And there's this whole idea of like I think it starts with it starts getting really tense when Ben-Hur says that the Jews that are like causing problems for the Romans are patriots, and that just infuriates Messala. And then, yeah, Ben-Hur is on Messala's watch list, so to speak, for the remainder of Ben-Hur's time there.
Yeah, one of the things that I was talking about earlier with the theme of religion here is that
Mhm.
like it's very subtle, at least in the beginning, where it's sort of about the pride of the Jewish people. The Romans specifically say, "Oh, they're one God," because the Romans have many gods.
Mhm.
But like so, the one of the differences between the Jews and the Romans are the gods, like
Mhm.
so the like Judah's kind of backed by that one god,
Yeah.
and like it's powering him and the pride of the Jewish people forward, which is again it's very subtle, but then it becomes very overt near the end, and that's just one issue that I have, but I like how
Yeah.
it's displayed in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but even though they have many gods, their like sort of god incarnate is the emperor himself, which is who they're doing everything for. Um, anyway, the schism between friends has reached a fever pitch, and they are working against each other. There is a slave. This is where, like, we've seen Judah as sort of a morally uprighteous guy,
Hmm.
um, and then his slave person that helps him with his finances. He talks to
Simonitis.
that Simonitis. Yeah, I wrote it down. Arrives with gifts from Antioch, and he's negotiated a trade route with some king in Libya or something.
Hmm.
Um, and then, yeah, they like talk about how he's a slave, or he inherited him. Ben-Hur inherited him as a slave, and he's like, "You're not more than a slave. You're my friend."
No, he says, when I inherited you, I inherited a friend, not a slave,
Oh yeah,
which is
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
very cringe line. I was like, oh God, no.
Yeah.
You cannot portray Ben-Hur as a morally righteous man and also have him own slaves. That it doesn't work like that.
I was laughing so hard. It was such a shock to the system. I guess there were like slave owners at the time. Okay. Maybe slavery at the time was a little bit different than what we learn in school and that kind of thing, but yeah, it was just like who wrote that line? They need to okay, it didn't age well, but even in the 50s, that they should have thought that one through.
Right. Yeah.
God. Yeah, I inherited a friend, not a slave owner. I wrote that one down. He's
Yeah.
got a daughter
Yeah.
who is also a slave. At the beginning of the movie, at least Esther, she wants to get married, and this is one of the bad parts of the
Yeah, he takes
movie.
Esther to like his secluded hideaway, and he starts perving on her. He's like, I know you want to get married, but what if I were to taste the fruit first?
Oh, I shouldn't kiss a woman to be wed. Oh no. And he offers her freedom as a wedding gift. Oh my. When he took her wedding, not her wedding ring, her slave ring and put it on,
Mm,
I guess he said like I won't take it off until I meet a woman that I'm fit to wed or something like that. But I was really expecting like I was looking forward to, because I was under the impression that this would be like Christ himself would be kind of gay, although he does a little bit of that. Um, Coded anyway, not uh, obvious, but I was thinking that Jesus is going to be the one to get him to take the ring off later for
Hmm.
some reason. But then he said the line like, I won't take this off until, I meet a woman that I'm going to marry. And I realized, oh, he's going to marry her later. It's not going to be Jesus who makes him take the ring off and whatever. That was my like vision of the movie
Hmm.
early on. And then
I
he
should I
macks
should
on
say
him.
Esther is played by Haya Harit, who's an
Mhm,
actual Israeli actress. So they got like an actual person of
mhm.
from the region to play this. But that would also mean that she's knowledgeable about illegal occupations. So good for them for finding her.
She's really, yeah, it's not like this hasn't been going on even before the 50s. So, uh, you know, it paints a pretty picture, but it is kind of ridiculous when you consider the relationship between the US and Israel for decades and decades, even during the time of the making of the film. So, anyway, moving on, the
Mm.
governor arrives. There's no warm welcome for him because Judah did not bow down like a dog to Messala and his strong arming of Judah. Um, they have a little parade in the city, and everybody is watching from the streets and from above. And Tirza, Judah's sister, accidentally knocks down some of the roof tiles, which scares the horse the governor is on, knocks him off, and he's um, in need of severe medical attention. And the Romans act fast to punish the Ben-Hur family.
Hmm. No, yeah, that was very interesting. They just all pound on the door, break in, and then Masala
Mhm.
shows up, and Judah's like, "Tell them I didn't mean that. We didn't mean for this to happen." Like Judah takes over and is like, "I'll take the blame for this, Tirza. Don't say anything." And then like Masala's like, yeah, it's you did something bad. You're gonna be arrested, and your family's going to be arrested, but don't do anything to the slaves or servants. And I really like felt Judah's pleas here. Like he's like, come on, I wouldn't try to hurt the governor. Like this was an accident. Tell them it was an accident. And
Mhm.
Masala's like, you know what? Fuck you. You wouldn't listen to me. You're going to jail, you son of a bitch. And it's
Yeah.
just like his like Judah's pleas, but also Masala's like uncaring response was like, wow, this dude sucks.
Yeah, and it was all just to put like he also does investigate what happened and he sees that yeah, he was telling the truth. It was an accident. The roof tiles do slip easily after Judah's been taken away and the mother and sister have been taken away. And I really I really like that this whole like I mean the tragedy comes from the opposing viewpoints, but the meat of the tragedy and what really sets off Judah and gives him his motivation is simply an accident. Um, like he obviously, even though he's opposed to the Romans, he's not suicidal. Basically, he's not gonna frisk anything and cause serious trouble. But through this unfortunate accident, his family is met with disaster. And yeah, Masala uses as an opportunity for political maneuvering to show that he is capable of coldly punishing his lifelong friends, so all others will uh, hopefully listen to Roman rule.
Hmm.
Uh, so He's set to be taken to Tyrus without trial. And Judah runs off while he's in the dungeons and kills a couple Romans, and eventually picks up a spear, makes his way to Messala, and asks for his family, which is where Messala reveals, this is, if you do anything to me, they'll be killed. And this is a political tool for me to control the population. You're going to be imprisoned as a slave and sent to the galleys, where he's expected to die within a year because of the hard, backbreaking work of moving boats around in the Mediterranean.
And he does that to his friend. Imagine
His best
what he
friend.
would do to people he hates, who he doesn't care for.
Exactly. Yeah, he is a menace. He's truly like, I don't know, the actor for this guy, I actually felt hatred for him. I was like, I need to see this man suffer and fail miserably, which I expected would happen because it's a religious story, so yeah, bad guys got to lose. But he was such a good villain. He just so evil, cruel, maniacal in a way. But Judah's journey continues. He is in the boats, in a galley.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. Sorry, I went ahead a little bit. Here's our second sight of Christ, I guess, besides the first one.
Right, yeah. One of my favorite scenes where they're all traveling and then they arrive at like a well, and the Romans are like, only the Romans drink first. And then after the Romans get their drink, the kind people who they're traveling by give them some water. But they're like, no water for Judah because they're jerks. And Judah falls to the ground. And as he's there, we see a familiar man with sandals. We don't see his face. Excellent framing of Jesus, in my opinion.
Yeah, just see his hair, which makes it plain as day.
But he sort of like cleans up Judah, and then Judah gets up and he gives him some water, which the Roman leading the whole thing is like, hey, what did I say? Don't give him water. And Jesus just turns to that man and is like his posture is like, do something about it. Like, and
well, he's not threatening him, but yes.
yeah. Like the Roman was like, oh my, the look on his face, like he hasn't seen this type of person before.
Yeah, I guess he did, like, he had his arms out a little bit, but I guess it was like he who casts the first stone or whatever. No, not that, but just like, here I am, like I'm open. It was sort of a peaceful do something about it.
Yeah, but I really like this because one, the framing of Jesus, how you don't see his face, but you know who he is. If you're from Western cultures, probably, but like the power of that. Again, how it's not necessarily a story about Jesus, but it's a story of how people see Jesus, and then like the kindness that one person can show to their fellow man. Again, that's a very Jewish kind of tenet right there, showing the power of their religion and what they feel in relation to the world around them.
Yeah, I mean, I really like this scene as well. I guess Judah did have the same sort of reaction, also with gratefulness because he was getting water. Like he had the same sort of, or similar facial expression to the Roman centurion. I'm spoiling it a little bit later, but when we see, there's a part of the movie briefly where you actually see Jesus's face, but it's been blacked out for like, to not be sacrilegious. And when I saw that part, I was thinking, no wonder the Roman centurion was freaked out. His face is anyway. I
didn't even notice that.
Years have gone by. It's 3 years now, and Judah is still alive and looking ripped.
Yeah, I do like how epic movies can sometimes do that with the passage of time. But one of my issues with the movie is how it just glosses over stuff that could have been like very useful. Like you could have told another type of story within this story. I think again, well, like it could have been even longer, like to show
Hmm.
his suffering aboard the ship and how he's
Hmm.
like how he's persevered overcoming that.
Yeah.
But maybe that would have just been a little bit boring. I don't know. It
Yeah, well, I think that wasn't necessary because I think through the dialogue they make it well, one, while he's on the ship, they make it clear how much he's suffering, and how much all the others are suffering. Um, they could have shown how he persevered. I think there could have been some time for that. But he kind of makes it clear that seeing Jesus, even though he didn't know who he was, like that was a little bit of something that motivated him, but also what really motivated him was to get his family back out. But he does sort of mention like, how else could I live on the in the galleys for 3 years when most men die under one, something like that.
Mhm.
So it is kind of explained, not necessary, but it would have been nice to see like a little bit of how he like physically and emotionally persevered and yeah, how he got that resolve.
This moment
Uh
has one of my favorite quotes from the movie where they say, "Hate keeps a man alive. His desire for revenge against the man what done him wrong is probably the thing that kept him alive these 3 years.
yeah, yeah.
Just him wanting to stay alive just so he can get his family back, but also maybe inflict the same amount on Messala."
Yeah, that's right. I believe the quote is like hate keeps a man alive and makes him stronger, which is the one of the consuls of Rome that says it, who's on the boat with them on the galley. And he says that after seeing that Judah has not given up the will to fight. He says something like, "You still have the will to fight, but the intelligence not to do anything."
Hmm.
And then it gives him this really great speech about hate keeps a man alive and makes him stronger and this kind of stuff. And then he tries to break the spirit of Judah by having the guy with the hammers set the pace for how fast they should row, and keeps going faster and faster and faster, and people are starting to bow down. But Judah is like, he just keeps staring at the console. He will
Hmm.
not back down. And I just love that. I mean, I thought that really effectively showed his resolve to get back to Judea, and yeah, take revenge, which is like, I think this movie does a really good job of showing like revenge is a hollow,
Hmm.
can be a hollow thing, and doesn't necessarily satisfy you, and just leaves you feeling empty. But we'll get to that a little bit later.
Hmm.
But yeah, it really sets that up in this moment. Like he's just not gonna give up for anything. But the consul realizes he can't break Ben-Hur and takes great interest in him and wants to keep him as a personal gladiator slave slash chariot racer slave, um, and bring him to Rome. But Ben-Hur rejects this. Judah rejects this because he doesn't want to be a fighter. He wants to get back to Judea, and he keeps telling him, "I'm going to go back."
Hmm.
um, yeah,
Before he actually like I think Ben-Hur rejects that. And then like there's a big old naval battle that takes
oh
place.
yeah. There's Macedonian galleys are disturbing trade for Rome, so that's why they start doing the boom,
Hmm.
faster, boom, 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 that thing. Um, so yeah, the we know that there are some other boats, some enemies of Rome in the sea, and they are heading toward them. Then the consul speaks to Ben-Hur, who tells him, I'm not giving up. I'm getting back to Rome. I'm getting back to Judea. I'm not going to Rome with you. But then all the slaves are locked in their chains when the Macedonian galleys are within sight. And this really amazing naval battle takes place. Really epic. Everything about the movie is epic. Set design, costuming, vision, scope, events. Everything is just incredible.
You forgot to mention Judah was not or like he was let out of his chains.
Yeah, he was unlocked.
Yeah.
But once the battle begins, his ship gets rammed into, and he takes that opportunity to kill one of the Romans and take the keys to unlock as many of the other slaves as he can to give them a fighting chance to get out. Things don't look good for the Romans or Ben-Hur. Ben-Hur ends up finding the consul and dragging him to some driftwood. And they are found by another Roman ship. The consul expects that Rome has lost and is upset. However, the Romans won somehow.
Mm-hmm. There is an interesting part in that scene, though, where Judah, like as he's fighting people on the ship, he grabs a torch and shoves it into a Macedonian's face. And
yeah. Oh, that was sick. Yeah.
I don't know how they did that because it looked like they actually set that man on fire.
Yeah.
And I really hope that guy was okay.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I saw that and I like audibly gasped and covered my mouth because I was in shock. Like that had to hurt. I think Charleston Heston killed that man. And Ben-Hur is brought to Rome to be a chariot racer, where he finds great success in the great circus, and is eventually adopted as Arius.
Scene missing. Just because like he's proclaimed to be a great charioteer, we never see that happen.
Yeah, that would have been nice to. I mean, I guess I'm glad it wasn't shown, given that 100 horses died for the scene that we haven't talked about yet.
Oh wow!
So, that's sad. Mm-hmm. If they had another chariot scene, it would have been badass. But I'm glad fewer horses die. But yeah, scene missing. We're just told Arius, Judah Ben-Hur. And we also find out that Judea has a new governor. The old one didn't work out. And for anybody who's familiar with the New Testament, we find out that the new governor is Pontius Pilate. Things are starting to formulate. Another subtle reminder, like even when God, I guess he is God, but even when Christ is not there, he is present, right? Like even though you don't have any reference to Jesus, but being reminded that Pontius Pilate, the governor of Judea, is going, reminds you, who about what is going to happen to Christ. So.
I recall that Pontius calls like Judea like a ghetto or something like that. Yeah. Like I do not want to be here.
That's so funny. So bad. Anyway, Ben-Hur is on his way back to Judea as well. And he meets a man, I believe this was Balthazar, one of the three wise men, who is looking for Jesus and mistakes him for Jesus, and then tells him like, no, if you were him, I would know. If I saw him, I would know. And then we get into some really outdated cringe, other than the noble just cause slave owning part. We get into the brown face.
Was that brown face? It was.
I
I don't know who the sheik was played by.
I don't know either, but his skin seemed to sweat off sometimes.
Okay.
And, like the color didn't stay consistent, and I don't think it was because of lighting. I think it was because of makeup. I don't know if every like Arab character was brown face. I think so. I mean, there were most of them were minor characters, but I'm positive that this was a white guy dressed with brown makeup on his face.
Wouldn't surprise me. I don't like
Yeah.
it. It's stupid.
Yeah. So that's cringe.
Yeah, I mean, they found
Um,
Haya Harit. They could find a bunch of other like Middle Eastern actors and actresses too
yeah,
for this.
you might as well. I mean, and she's got a sizable part in the second half of the movie. Like, she's fairly important. And he's looking for a chariot racer. And he invites Ben-Hur to have a feast with him because he's heard about Ben-Hur, or heard from Ben-Hur, Judah, about what he's capable of. And seems to take some slight disrespect until Judah burps at the food that he's eating to show that
Mm.
yes, this is delicious. I don't know if that's an Arab thing at all.
Yeah, in some
Uh,
cultures you burp and it shows like
yeah,
respect for the food and whatnot.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I've heard of that kind of thing, but anyway, I don't know if this is part of the culture they're trying to represent here or what, but he is doing everything he can to convince Judah to be his chariot racers with his Arabian white horses. I mean, he's coming at it from every angle, until finally he sort of settles on, like, wouldn't it be sweet to see the Roman tribune, in his with his black horses, the Roman tribune Messala lose to a returning Jew, and hold that against him and laugh in his face and show the weakness of Rome and that kind of stuff. And this sort of gets the gears turning for Ben-Hur. I don't think he accepts at that moment, but he does a little bit later, if I remember right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it
He's
takes a
like,
while.
I'd rather return home right now.
Yeah, but it gets the gears turning for him at least. Like, the next scene is Judah returning home, which is in ruins and empty except for his slaves. The Romans took everything. Esther is there. I guess she's free, or is she free? Because she never married the person that she was supposed to marry,
Yeah,
and she was given her freedom as a wet. It doesn't answer this, and it doesn't matter. But I think she's a slave at this point because she never got married, right?
yeah.
Maybe she's free.
Well,
No,
I
because
do
she
have a
does.
question for you.
Yeah.
And that is, they said that the Romans took everything. Would that have happened had Judah not uh had like Judas had that accident with the governor? Had that not happened and Judah and Messala just operated as usual, would they still have taken his things?
I think Masala would have looked for any reason to take Judah out for similar purposes. He might not have gotten the rest of the family. Um, but I think what would have happened is he would have found any excuse to get rid of Judah and would have brought in the family for questioning, and then they would never be seen. So I think it would have happened anyway. And I'm going to answer my own question. She is free because she had her slave ring taken off, and Judah has it.
Mm.
Um, because that is important in coming up. Uh,
Yeah.
he is Simonitis is no longer capable of using his legs. He is I don't know if he's paraplegic, but his legs have gone lame at least. Um, He's got a friend from the prison because they were taken in. We didn't mention that, but they were taken in for questioning as well when they begged Messala, like, he's innocent.
Hmm.
And then they got taken in and questioned and thrown in jail and that kind of stuff. Um, Simonitis. I really love this part. I thought Simonitis's like clear, burning passion was even stronger than Judah. To me, like his burning passion to get revenge on the Romans, not just Messala, but like all Romans for what
Hmm.
has happened. Like I really felt his anger, and maybe I'm remembering wrong, but it seemed to me that Judah like was taken aback by that. Um, not too much. Like he's just kind of just listening to Simonitis, and then I think Esther tells him to sleep or whatever. Um, and then the two of them go off together. Yeah, at this point, Esther is trying to convince Judah to forget about Messala because they're on a crash course uh, of destiny, and things are gonna heat up soon. Judah has a little scene with, oh my gosh, Esther.
Hmm.
I said I would. This ring has been on my hand for years. I said I would take it off when I met the woman I'm going to marry.
Yeah, it's fine. This romance is detracting from this amazing
Yeah,
tale of revenge.
yeah.
This cringe
I
romance between a master and his former slave.
and Charlton Heston is just not a romantic lead in my mind. Just this is some of the worst acting from him when he's trying to be like, yes, darling, I love you. It's just really when you say it like that, it doesn't feel that way. um, he also has some overact, like it's pretty funny. I didn't mention it earlier, but when they're on the way to the galleys or to Tyrus and he's getting the water taken away from him and he's like,
Yeah, it's very silly, but I think it adds to at the time like Judah's kind of desperation, and he's not being given water, so you're in the desert too.
Yeah,
You'd
that's true.
be
And he's probably, as a prince, he's never known suffering, right? Never known serious suffering. Maybe like, I mean, whatever rich people have problems with, but he's never known true suffering in this way. So I do give it a pass. I wasn't too upset with any of the acting, but sometimes, Charlton Heston does a few things really well and a few things he sure is there.
Mhm.
Anyway, um, we see Messala, and he's presented with a gift by uh, Quintus Arius. Arius was the last name, I guess. Quintus is the first name,
Mhm.
and that is also the name of the adoptive father, and also Judah Ben-Hur's Roman name, if I remember right.
Mhm.
Um, uh, and the gift is a sword, or not a dagger or something like that. And this guy, Messala, doesn't know who Quintus Arius is, and he's trying to figure it out. And then immediately, um, uh, Quintus Arius arrives, and lo and behold, it is Judah, and the two rivals come face to face again. Um,
Pretty good here.
yeah, it was a good scene. It was such a good scene. These guys had a lot of great, like really great on-screen chemistry to the point, as you were mentioning earlier, it was a little bit homoerotic early
Mhm.
on. But I think they played off each other so well. Um,
Masala is kind of fearful of Judah here. He's like,
yeah,
"You're back. How did you come back?"
I told you I'd come back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Charlton Heston has such a commanding voice. It works so well. And he's demanding that Messala finds out where his family is.
Mhm.
And Messala, in his fear of Judah, I wonder what exactly is he afraid of? Because he's still in control. I mean, we were a little bit reminded he's the one in control, right, with the whip. So what is it about Judah? Is it just like seeing a ghost again?
Yeah, it's like this man that you sentenced to death in a way where everyone else you sentenced probably ended up dead. Judah's like mom and sister haven't been heard of in this nearly 4 years. But here's this man who you did wrong and is showing back up. Like you're not used to seeing the consequences to your actions.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
true.
Messala fucked around and now he's finding out.
Yeah. That's right. I guess you're right. It's like, yeah, seeing a ghost. By all rights, Judah should be dead and Messala should have no worries, but here is the man himself that he condemned to death. He finds out that mother and daughter are still alive. A mother and sister are still alive. However, they have leprosy. They are lepers and they are outcast to the Valley of the Lepers.
The
Living.
cruelty of the prison system where they're just sent to the darkest dungeon and then nobody bothers to check on them because they're like the food's taken, sounds good to me, call it a day.
I guess they're fine. They're still eating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that really, like, there's so many just small things. Like, I guess that's a big thing, but there are just so many great ways that show like the cruelty of these people in power and like, yeah, the harm that they're doing, the real actual harm, especially unjust, and yeah, how unjust they are and that kind of stuff. um yeah, they're taken out of the city to these caves in the Valley of the Lepers, and they are not in good shape, but they show up to the Ben-Hur estate, home, palace, whatever, and they get hold of Esther to tell her they're still alive, but don't let Judah know and don't let him see us like this. And then the intermission hits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he keeps going to the leper colony too, and I feel like that's where something could be cut out because he's like, I'm so torn, but also the scene seems pointless if he's not going to actually confront, like, approach his family. So it could have
Yeah.
been like, tell my family that or tell my son that, not that we're dead, and then like it could have just you could have cut out the first time he goes to the leper colony and just focused on the last time when he tries to rescue them.
Yeah, but then it would have been kind of weird. Like, I just thought it was weird that they showed up at her house, at the Ben-Hur house. Like, I know why they would, obviously, but it just felt kind of weird that they would even do that, except to set up having Esther and Ben-Hur go to the leper colony later, so we could have our pure happy ending, which, yeah, I did not particularly care for it, but I think the whole leper thing could have been cut. I mean, like, oh, they're found and they're in the Valley of the Lepers. Actually, maybe not all of it cut, but this whole meeting Esther, because it just didn't feel like, wouldn't the guards make sure that they can't, like, they would stay away from them so they don't get leprosy, but wouldn't they make sure that they get out of the city? Why are they just like letting them roam freely? That's so weird. Except to set up the next couple scenes. So they could cut this part. I still think they could have had the leper part a little bit later. Like, things would have to be a little bit different, but somehow Judah finds out your family is alive and they're in the Valley of the Lepers. And then, okay, go there. But intermission, quite a long intermission, great music, bathroom break, much needed after 2.5 hours. And we come back to one of my favorite scenes in the movie, where the Arab guy has come back. I don't think he has a chariot racer just yet, but he's banking on Judah being his chariot racer. Am I right? I don't think Judah ever agreed up to this point, but I think he agrees later.
Well, I think actually, like, Judah heard that his mother and sister were dead, and he's like, no, Messala has to die,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
that's why he agrees to be the chariot racer for
Yeah, that's
cheap.
right. That's right. I forgot to write that down. But he's gambling. He's come with his coffers, um, a giant chest full of gold, which he uses like a spear or something to poke through and dig through to show, look, it's all real. It's all here. It goes all the way to the bottom. It's all full of gold. I'm betting this on my racer, on my horses. And uh, he wants to bet against Messala, who has been winning with his black horses.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, um, they're like, everyone is like, I want in on this. What about 2-1? And this guy is like, now where's the bold, daring nature of the Roman spirit? I want. I guess you're not taking me seriously, are you?
He's making a little bit of money off these stupid Romans.
He knows exactly how to play them, their pride.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
But
what were you going to say?
Messala, I like how he says to Messala, like he looks in his eyes and says, "My racer is Judah Ben-Hur." Like
Yes.
he knows that's going to egg on Messala, and so it's a
Yeah.
very good moment right there.
And then he gets a 4-1 gambling ratio. I don't really know what that gambling odds or whatever, or like payout, I guess. I don't know gambling terms, but uh, Masala is a little bit hesitant. I mean, like the Judah Ben-Hur thing eggs him on a little bit, but he's a little bit hesitant, partly because it's his best friend and he knows what goes on. Although that doesn't seem to bother him later, but but maybe he just doesn't have the funds for it, I guess. But he finally accepts, and then it is on. Masala shows up. He's late, uh, arrives fashionably late, and he is taking this very seriously. There are no more qualms about this. He's out to win, and he's got these blades on the ends of his wheels that
Greek chariot.
yeah, of his Greek chariot, so that when he lines up with somebody, they will destroy the wheel of a competitor and be out of the race. I guess he's allowed to do that because he's Roman.
There are no
Because no one,
rules,
there
so
are no rules. So why doesn't anybody? Maybe they don't have the funds.
you
I
could bring a
guess.
gun. Bring a gun and just shoot your
That would be.
opponent.
I would pay to see that.
Like it seems dangerous from like a gladiator standpoint, but also like they don't give the extras a lot of time to move people off the set.
Yeah, they really don't have a lot of time. I was afraid for those not actors, but the extras who were moving stuff off of the track. But we get the lay of the land and we see that Pontius Pilate is overseeing the whole thing, and there will be a reward for victory. They line up. Pontius Pilate drops the tissue or whatever, and then the flags are gone down, and what proceeds is a high adrenaline, action packed, fucking badass 10-minute, 9-minute, whatever scene full of tension and drama. Couldn't quite be its own short film, doesn't work that way, but it was like the perfect blow off to this whole um yeah um conflict between former friends.
Hmm.
I guess I would like to know what were your thoughts on all the moving parts of this, other than it's sad that 100 horses died for this.
Yeah, it makes sense that 100 horses died.
Yeah.
Geez. It's a great scene. There's a lot of tension, as you said. The way that it's paced with some people like their horses just like crashing or them falling off their their chariot, and then Messala being a big old jerk and like grinding the wheels of his opponent to cause him to crash. It really highlights how he's like a threat throughout this entire
Yeah.
scene. And then
Ben-Hur almost falls off his chariot at some point as well, but manages to catch himself and continue. That was intense.
And then Judah, like making his way to the front, falling behind, and then managing to get back to the front to compete with Messala. That's really well done as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think both of them, or no, it's Messala that mentions like there's really only one way this goes. It's between you and me, to Judah. And Judah does not have the tools that Messala has. Messala has the spikes at the end of his wheels. He has the whip. And when it's neck and neck, Judah has to make sure to keep his wheels away uh, from the little spinning spike on Messala's wheels. But he also has to be aware of Messala whipping him, which ultimately Messala came a little too prepared because that whip ended up backfiring big time on him when Judah wraps it around his arm, grabs it, takes it from him, and starts whipping Messala. And much like many of the other competitors, Messala falls off and gets trampled.
Yeah,
Repeatedly.
that was harrowing. Like I don't know how they filmed that, but it was well done. He's like dangling from the back of his chariot, and then he falls, or he's trampled beneath horses once he lets go. He's
Yeah.
kind of lying dead, and then Judah finishes the race,
Yeah.
and it's the like Judah's like checking on his friend before he's rescued, but it goes to show like even though this dude was whipping him like a couple minutes before and there's a lot of bad blood, like he does care.
Yeah, it's still his best friend, a lifelong friend, even though they've been diametrically opposed to each other and had wildly different uh, desires. There is still something inside of him that cares about Masala. I actually, like, I saw him grab, like, he got stepped on by some horses, so he should be severely injured. But I saw him grab the bottom of one of the other chariots. And I was thinking, is he going to climb, even though he got stepped on, is he going to climb up and take this chariot and then try to finish the race? But then no, he lost and they got trampled again. I don't know how they filmed any of this because it's just so intense the whole way through. It's really mind-blowing. Judah is rewarded by Pontius Pilate. Messala is dying. They need to do surgery. I'm not sure what kind of surgery to take his
They got to
legs
amputate
off.
his leg.
Yeah, amputate his leg. That's what I thought. And they're waiting for Judah to show up to speak to him. And Judah finally shows up slightly too late.
But hold on. Yeah, it's like the camera focuses on Messala, and he's like, we're not gonna do anything until I greet my friend on my own 2 feet. And then like as he's doing that, the camera pans over, and you see Judah in the doorway, like his silhouette, watching his friend die, and it's such an amazing shot. It's like it tells an entire story. Like
Yeah.
it's so good. I love it so much.
Yeah, I agree. It's so good. Anyway, Judah is there for one reason. He wants to know where his family is. Like what happened to his family. I put Metalis because I forgot what his name was in my notes, even though I'd been writing Messala the whole time. Messala lets him know to go to the Valley of the Lepers. Says a few more things, dies horribly. Deserved?
Yeah, he was a piece of shit, and he got what all pieces of shit deserve. But I do
Yeah,
love Judah's reaction to this, where he's like, this man who he hates is like dead now, and it immediately hits him, and you see him like tearing up, and he's like, oh my God, I've lost someone so close to me, someone who's a friend, and as you
mm,
mentioned earlier, like revenge is hollow, and it's starting to dawn on him that maybe that revenge
yeah,
wasn't worth it.
yeah, exactly. Like he's definitely figuring out that I don't know. It's like what he wanted was not what he wanted. He didn't want to be in this position in the first place, but
Mhm.
um, since he was put in the position, yeah, he thought this was the path forward, and he kept moving forward. He goes to the Valley of the Lepers, and he asks for some women by the family name of Ben-Hur, and the first person he meets says, "We have no names here," and that just felt cold to me.
Mhm.
That made me
Mhm.
feel the tension drama of it.
No, Judah is there, and Esther is bringing food, and Judah
Oh
sees.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's right. I just wrote Esther knows where they are, and I was confused. What did I mean by that?
Mhm.
Yeah, Esther is bringing food for them, and they come out, and they don't want Judah to see them. I believe at this point he hides behind a rock.
Mhm.
Um, that is a great tragedy. Oh, he starts crying,
Yeah.
uh, which as any person would. Um, yeah. Anyway,
I didn't care for
there.
this scene, to be honest. I didn't. It was just like it felt pointless. If you're not going to show your mother and sister, and we already assumed the sadness of the situation with
Yeah,
the mother with them showing up at the house, but now we have this, and he doesn't do anything. It just feels pointless
yeah.
to me.
Not yeah. There was no reason for them to go to the house except to set this up, I guess. And then there was, I mean, I guess the only scene that should be here is him meeting his mom and his sister. Judah is going back home with Esther, and they see a huge amount of people waiting on a hill,
Hmm.
waiting for someone, and we're not sure who. Although anybody who's been paying attention knows who. And they see Balthazar again, who has finally found the man he's looking for, the Son of God. Um, and Balthazar keeps telling him, "You got to listen to this guy. You got to hear what he has to say." But Judah is a lost man. He's
Hmm.
lost in he's gotten his revenge, but he feels there's nothing there, and so he's still full of anger and frustration, and something is burning up inside of him, and ultimately he wants to take it out on all of Rome and get them out of Judea and save his people and that kind of thing, which he wanted in the first place, but he wasn't motivated by hate and a hollow emptiness and that kind of stuff. Um, Balthazar is upset that he won't listen, but Esther comes and somehow she gets to the front of the line.
Hmm.
I don't know how. I guess she was like, "Excuse me, I'm married to royalty. Get out. I'm not a slave anymore. I can do what I want." I mean, I don't know. And we suddenly see a man who looks just like the guy who gave Judah water, um, coming out to speak to people. And
Hmm.
Esther is moved. She is moved by his words. And what Christ's teachings are pretty moving. Obviously, the religion wouldn't.
I think this is the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Uh, Blessed be the merciful, for uh, they will be shown mercy and that kind of stuff. So it's a big, major moment for Christ in his own in the Bible, in the New Testament. So yeah, it's the Sermon on the Mount. So she's heavily moved by the things he has to say, which will come back because she will try to get Judah to listen and give up his quest for revenge on Rome. And a lot of this comes,
Pontius
yeah,
offers him Roman citizenship at this point.
yeah, a lot of this comes out when Pontius Pilate offers him Roman citizenship,
Yeah,
which I would have thought he got. I guess he didn't. That's why he's being offered it. But I would have thought he got being adopted. But I guess because Judah was a slave, former slaves couldn't become citizens, I think, in Rome. So it makes sense here. But anyway, yeah, Pontius Pilate trying to ease tensions. Although Pontius Pilate is like the voice of the evil empire here, like he is trying to give some good advice to Judah here, even though like he's on the wrong side of history in this sense, right? But he is like trying to save this guy, like basically trying to quell his anger. Like, don't do it. I know you're angry. Don't do it. I mean, he says lots of different things.
Yeah, I really like the scene again for two reasons. One, Judah gives this big speech about not wanting to sell out his people.
Yeah,
and
his hatred of Rome.
Yeah, but I think that goes to show like a couple things there that like again the connection to God, the one true God, and the power
your land
of the Jewish people.
Yeah.
The like very subtle, like not as overt as the upcoming like power of Christianity and Jesus and blah blah blah. But also maybe you can't change the system from within the system. You have to change it outside of it, like what Jesus did. Whereas if you change it within the system, like becoming a Roman citizen, maybe he would become the oppressor at that point. They would just like use him as a means of further oppressing the Jewish people.
Yeah, and a few amazing things. This is not when this thing. Well, I'll say the things that are brought up here. One of the best lines in the movie for me is like, I think Pontius Pilate offers him Roman citizenship and calls him, like, tries to quell his anger and calls him Quintus Arius. And then Judah says, I am Judah Ben-Hur. And I was just like, damn, that is a powerful statement. And he gives up his Roman ring. But as far as like the Christian stuff, I think it's actually at the beginning of the movie. But I didn't see it in my notes at the time. One thing I really love about the film is the portrayal of religion, kind of, except for the Christian stuff. Like the Jewish religious stuff, like I'm down for that. It's important to people. It's important to Jewish people, also people around the world. Okay, it's a motivating factor and affects how people live their life. That's cool. I can live with that. I'm down. Okay, the Romans have their own religion that motivates them. They see the emperor as their god. Okay, down, or as like a god incarnate kind of person. Okay, cool. There's a couple lines early on that are really great. Basically about, or not early on, I think it's before this, but some Romans are talking about Jesus and the things he's doing and things John the Baptist is doing in the river, talking about how he's drowning people in the river and Jesus is doing these so-called miracles and blah, blah, blah.
Magic tricks by a carpenter.
Yeah, magic tricks by a carpenter called a miracle. Like, those are great lines, but also it like really goes to show, like, if you're outside of that realm, like of Christianity and this understanding of God, all that stuff is actually really fucking weird. And they are rightfully like, what's up with these rabble rousers who care too much about their religion and this kind of thing. So I really liked that kind of portrayal, like of the outsiders looking into like that religion, that growing religion. I don't think it's really accurate to what Rome did because they accepted Jesus as just another god, but you know, at least in the movie, it worked really well.
Judah, at this point, rescues his family. Sorry for the leprosy, Judah. He takes his family to the city where Jerusalem, where everyone's missing because Jesus is on trial, and people throw rocks at the lepers. which is unfortunate. And then
Yeah.
we see the execution of Jesus, where he picks up his cross and goes to walk with it. Some
That's where
people try
the
to.
black scratch over his face was when he has to pick it up after Pontius Pilate has blamed him. Because they have a back shot behind the Pontius Pilate, and in the front you can see Jesus standing and looking at him.
Mm.
Anyway,
Well, yeah. So like people are helping him, but the Romans are pushing them away. Kind of like what happened when Judah was drinking or trying to get water after he was arrested.
and
Uh,
Judah gives him water.
yeah, like he grabs some water. Jesus falls over, and he I think Jesus drinks some, but he's pushed away.
Yeah.
And you see this look on Judah's face, which we don't find out until the end of the movie. But then Jesus is executed, and Judah tells his family that, like, I heard him say, "Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do."
Well, he also says, when he first sees Jesus, he says, "I know that man," because he recognizes his
Mhm.
face, the black scratch, constantly walking around. Anyway, he recognizes Jesus, yeah. And what did he say at the end?
He says, like, "Oh, I heard
Oh,
him
forgive
say,
them, Father.
forgive them, Father, they know not what they do."
Yeah, I think the whole way that all of this stuff was shown, like the cinematography of it and the set design stuff was incredible. Like the way they got the cross, the crucifix up, with that framing thing, like all of it was super like well done and like felt good. But yeah, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And then I thought it was really cool. A terrible storm comes and rains down.
Yeah,
And
the blood
then
is like washing down a river now.
yeah, mother and yeah. And then the mother and the sister are forgiven for their sins.
They're cured of their leprosy.
Yeah, well, they're also forgiven for their sins. The sin of having leprosy, I guess. That was that was such a confusing message to me. Like, I mean, that's why God sacrificed his son, forgive everyone for their sins. But all I could think was like, they did nothing wrong except now they're not healthy. Why are they? Why are they losing their leprosy unless it was a sin?
Well, so at this point, the movie gets too overt for me with its religious,
Yeah,
like it's previously it was like the power of God is amazing. And you fight for the Jewish people because they are a proud
yeah,
people who
yeah.
have that connection to God.
Mm.
And it's very beautiful. But then you get to this part where it's like Christianity is the one true religion and the suffering of Jesus is the most important thing. And those two things kind of conflict with one another because in
Mm.
the context of Jewish history, Jesus was just another revolutionary. They don't view him as the Messiah. Uh,
Yeah,
like at the time, maybe Judah might have thought that, but Jesus, like, you can't have a movie be about Jewish people and also about how Jesus was the Messiah. It's a conflict of religions and ideologies there.
yeah. There was so many. The Christian themes were so bad. I mean, they were the most hollow part of the movie, not Judah's revenge. Like it just felt so empty and
Hmm.
tacked on and terrible. Like the stuff with the scenes with Jesus were actually fantastic, I think. His crucifixion and his trial. I thought all that stuff was pretty good, but it just didn't make sense that he seemed to like immediately convert, and it mixed with the message as you were saying as well. Not to mention the leprosy disappearing as a sin for some reason.
Mm,
That still
yeah.
really bothers me. It just didn't make any sense. It didn't ruin the movie for me, but it was like it left such a sour note at the end of a great film. Now, here's if we made it shorter and we cut out a lot of this like leprosy stuff and made a few other scenes shorter and didn't have Charlton Heston try to act with horses and things like that. Um, what if we made it longer, like I said, what would have been great, it wouldn't have answered the questions you were looking for, maybe to make these two ideas of like Jewish faith and this new Christianity thing work. But Judah's quest for revenge on all of Rome and his burning hatred, like he's losing himself as a human being, right? If he could go through the steps of learning to be merciful, and actually like learn the teachings of Christ. I mean, that would have kind of not jived with his like Jewish faith, but if he could have like learned these lessons from Jesus in some like throughout another hour of the film somehow, or half an hour or whatever, it would have made the Christian themes stronger, I guess. But I think it would have also like made a really great like case point for like the kinds of things you can learn, like the good parts of Christianity, right? Not just this hollow crap that's like God is good and Jesus sacrificed himself for all your sins. Like if
Mhm.
it could have shown a man changing by like a man at his lowest in terms of his mental state and how he views the world around him, learning, these values from Christ, it wouldn't have worked for his own personal like religion and that kind of stuff. But it could have made the movie a lot more deep and meaningful, I think, and could have been great.
We need to judge movies by what they are, not what we wish them
Yeah,
to be.
yeah.
So it's
Who did you relate to the most in the movie then?
the our favorite part. I would say the Sheik. He's a shit starter, and I am also a shit starter. So just him trying to support Judah in his quest.
Mm,
It's a very I can relate a little bit to that.
yeah, if I
What about
had to
you?
if I had to say who I relate to the most, obviously it would be Christ because I I've got the hair, come on.
Yeah. Okay. Dr. Strike, the son over here, believes that he is Jesus. And he's right.
No,
I agree
no.
with him.
I am a Christ-like figure.
Okay. That is by far the most sacrilegious thing you've said on this channel. If I were to be a Christian, I'm not, but like, I'm sure
Yeah.
there's people out there who are gonna be like, how dare he call himself
Well, if
Christ?
this movie was more gay, if this movie was more gay and like Jesus did more gay things other than like tussling his hair like this when he's giving him water, I would have said, "Have you ever wanted to see Jesus fuck another man?" But for the cold open thing, but well, you can still put that in the front with some editing, I guess. Anyway, no, if I'm being serious, I uh, I guess I would probably relate most to maybe Esther, probably. Just in the sense that like sometimes not for anything nearly so serious, but sometimes I find myself like I want to convince someone of something, maybe say at work, and no matter how much logic I use, they're just not listening because they're determined on what they want. I find myself in this position a lot, but not for anything like super serious. It's never that bad. But yeah, maybe Esther, or of course Christ, because I'm sacrificing a lot for these people. Just kidding.
Mm, I can dig it. So ultimately, I think we both enjoyed this movie. I like the sense of
Mm,
brotherly betrayal and the sadness that
yes.
arises out of revenge. The score is good throughout, and the portrayal of Jesus, the framing of him is pretty wonderful. But the bad, like Judah, can be kind of creepy and pervy at times,
Yeah.
and I feel like there are missing scenes, and at the same time, it could be cut down. So either add
Mm,
more, as you said, or like cut down significantly
yeah.
to make it more coherent.
Yeah. Just make the Christian stuff make sense or drop it. Like keep Christ, but don't make it about like you should learn Christian values from this. And it would be much better to maybe actually hire Arab actors instead of painting brown face.
Yeah, that one I didn't realize. That's kind of awful.
Yeah, it has its flaws, but I think it does hold up until the end, which again, the leprosy disappearing. I don't even know what they did wrong. Like I just what was that supposed to mean?
Didn't Jesus cure the sick and the ill?
Yeah, but when he was alive, not when he died.
Well, maybe his blood is magic because they were coming into contact with that.
Maybe I forgot that part. Maybe he does, like all people were cured of their illnesses when he died too. Well, anyway, I do believe there's nothing else to talk about, which means it's time to find out what our next film, movie 2, is.
How familiar are you with the works of F. Gary Gray, Felix Gary Gray?
Who?
Okay, so he's a kind of an action director. I think he directed The Fate of the Furious, but going back, he also directed one of my favorite movies, which is Law Abiding Citizen. If you haven't seen that already, I definitely recommend that to both Lucas as well as the people who are listening out there. But we're going back to the 90s for a movie that he directed, which we might have differing views on. I haven't seen it yet, but one of the reasons I picked this is because more talk about Black cinema or movies by Black characters or about Black characters or by Black directors. And so the movie that I've chosen is Set It Off. Have you ever seen that before?
Nope, didn't even know it existed.
It stars Queen Latifah, everyone's favorite oversharer, Jada Pinkett Smith, although she was just Jada Pinkett at the time, and Vivica A. Fox, among a couple other people. I've heard good things about it, but I wanted to pick a movie that I hadn't seen before, and I had already been watching some works of Spike Lee, so I didn't want to pick one of his movies, which felt a bit obvious. So I don't know where you can find Set It Off, but I'll tell you as soon as I figure it out. So that's on the agenda.
Okie dokie, sounds good.
But yes, thank you everyone for listening to us ramble on about Ben-Hur for however long this video is or will be. If you have any thoughts, any comments, let us know below. Also, subscribe to Lucas's channel at Strike the Sun, which there will be a link to in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that other people can find out about these movies, these people, these directors and whatnot, and join the Discord as well, where we have chats about, movies, but also books and other such media. And until then, we wish you the best of luck in your weird and Messiah-based travels. Farewell.
Farewell.